For the first time, the U.S. military has had to divert an aircraft over Syria to avoid a Russian jet. This close call in the skies as Russia launches 26 long-range cruise missiles from warships positioned in the Caspian Sea, firing them into western Syria. An opposition group also reporting that Russia and Syria have carried out what appears to be the first major coordinated air assaults. This video right here apparently showing one of those Russian strikes, although CNN cannot verify the authenticity, we want to point out. What we do know right now is that Russian troops and weapons are also assisting a Syrian ground offensive. Attacks from both air and sea combined with government-led assaults on land. But despite appearances from Moscow that the targets of these attacks is ISIS, the areas hit are known to be held by rebel fighters, enemies of the president's regime.
We believe Russia has the wrong strategy. They continue to hit targets that are not ISIL. We believe this is a fundamental mistake. Despite what the Russians say, we have not agreed to cooperate with Russia so long as they continue to pursue a mistaken strategy.
To discuss, I want to bring in Chris Dickey, World News editor for the Daily Beast. Thanks for coming on, Chris. So these rebels that Russia appears to be targeting are backed by the U.S. When and how does the U.S. intervene?
Well, I don't think the U.S. is going to intervene. It's already pretty clear that there's not much the United States can or will do to protect those rebels on the ground. But not all the rebels that the Russians are attacking are backed by the United States. Some of them are members of an al-Qaeda affiliate, al-Nusra, and others are part of other Islamist organizations that are not allied with the United States and are against Assad and are also against ISIS. It's a mosaic of very confusing groups on the ground, and what the Russians are doing is targeting anybody who's opposed to Assad, whether they're on the American side, on the Islamist side, on the al-Qaeda side, or on the ISIS side.
For the first time, the U.S. military has had to divert an aircraft over Syria to move away from a Russian fighter aircraft. And Turkey's prime minister said today that Russian planes have violated Turkish airspace again. How might the dangers in the skies above Syria right now escalate as a result?
Well, there are two dangers. One is that Western coalition aircraft, particularly the United States or France, will get involved with some kind of showdown in the air with the Russian planes. That's unlikely, but it is possible. What is more likely is that the Russians will get into some kind of confrontation with the Turks. The Russians are flying planes right along the Turkish border. They've crossed into Turkish airspace. The Turkish President Erdogan has come out and said, we're not going to allow that to happen. And there is on record, not with Russian aircraft, but with Syrian aircraft in the past, armed confrontations where planes got shot down over the past few years. If that happens between the Russians and the Turks, we really don't know where that will go, but we do know one thing: Turkey is a NATO member, and NATO would be apprised of the fact and would have to decide whether it would come to Turkey's defense.